Good morning, and welcome to our Zoom worship service. My name is Ryan Urey, and I'm the Family Ministries Program Associate. We preface our service by acknowledging that the land on which our homes and church were built was not uninhabited when European settlers arrived here with their ideas of conquest and ownership. For those of us who live in Moscow, Pullman, or other nearby communities, we live on the ancestral homelands of the Nimipu, called Nez Perce by the French-speaking traders, the Palouse, and the Chiche-Umsh, called the Coeur d'Alene. If you are joining us from another place, I encourage you to discover who inhabited or moved through the place where you now live in the times before colonization and genocide, and where they are now. We pause and remember that we live on ground that is sacred, ground that was stolen, ground that cries out for justice and for responsible stewardship. May our remembering help us find the courage to do our part to restore wholeness to the earth and all her peoples.
And now let us join our voices together for our words of welcome, unison chalice lighting, and sung affirmation. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever your beliefs, whomever you love, and however bumpy your life's journey, know that you are welcome here.
Good morning, I'm Pam Arbor Green. Will you please join with me as we say the words to light our chalice? In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and we seek to share.
From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung in every land by every tongue.
Hello, I'm Nancy Nelson, and I'm helping present today's service. Today, we're looking at hymns that are meaningful to us as individuals and together as Unitarian Universalists. I'd like to introduce you to the top 10 most popular hymns from Facebook in 2013. You might think about what you think is the most popular one. Number 10, Voice Still and Small. Number 9, Morning Has Broken. Number 8, Gathered Here. Number 7, Meditation on Breathing. Number 6, Let It Be a Dance. Number 5, Come Sing a Song with Me. Number 4, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. Number 3, This Is My Song. Number 2, Spirit of Life. And number 1, you probably guessed it, Blue Boat Home. Our opening reading is from Dr. Glen Thomas Rideout, the worship director of the First Universalist Church of Minneapolis. He was not welcome in the churches of his childhood because he is a gay man. When he came to Unitarian Universalist churches and became a music director there, it changed his life. This is some of his writing about music. Because your story is forever changing, you must sing forever. Because you are not who you were, and because you shall not be who you are now, you must sing forever. Because your voice is like no other voice, because your voice and your voice and your voice and your voice and my voice comprise the uncompromising strength that is our voice, and because with your singing, our singing is miles wider, you must sing forever. Let us sing together now our opening hymn, Fire of Commitment.
From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment and our passion meet to call us on our way. When we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our minds and souls ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
So today, since our service is about our favorite hymns, I'd like to share some of my family's favorite UU songs. See, the music we share here every week refuses to stay confined to our Sunday services. It gradually weaves its way into our daily lives. So for a long time, there was no better way to get my son Taryn to go to sleep than an a cappella rendition of Blue Boat Home. And heaven help us if we tried to leave out a verse so we could get to bed a little sooner. At the end of each of our Zoom services, we sing There Is a Love, and Taryn actually gets so moved that he bursts into tears every single time. It's super sweet. However, sometimes we like to just tweak the words a little bit to kind of make the songs our own. And I should preface this by saying that my wife and I are huge dorks, in case you didn't already know that. So, for example, to start the day, we like to sing a slightly modified version of Come, Come, Whoever You Are.
Is waiting, so get a move on. Get out of your bed.
And then there's this one that we like to sing after dinner.
Come brush your teeth with me. Come brush your teeth with me. Come brush your teeth with me, and please don't forget to floss. Brush in the front, and also brush behind, and also brush the top, so all of your teeth will shine.
And that one is naturally followed by this version of There's a River Flowing.
There's There's some kiddos walking off to bed. There's some kiddos walking off to bed. And they're telling me that they're so sleepy. There's some kiddos walking off to bed.
Of course, on some nights we do have to modify it ever so slightly.
And they're telling me that they're not sleepy. I don't care because it's time to go to bed.
It's a shame we don't have Sam here all the time. It's so much better with the piano. Of course, the most important UU hymn for us, and probably for all parents, really requires no modification at all. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. That one many times a day. So I hope you'll consider this an invitation to let some of your favorite UU hymns not just be a part of a Sunday morning event, but really become part of your day-to-day lives.
Our reading today is more writing from Dr. Rideout. Dr. Rideout shows how loving and powerful our UU hymns can be when he describes how his first congregation sang, "We are a gentle, angry people," to him. We can truly, easily be ourselves when we sing. And I think that's what scares many of us, myself very much included, from singing more. When our bodies make music, we are loud and we are quiet. We are in tune and not quite. We are robust and piercing, thin and fragile, unrelenting and unsure. I get the same pit of the stomach feeling every time I must sing, every time a rehearsal begins, every time a worship service starts with a song. But I think of those moments that my congregation sang to me. I remember the courage of those words, and I remember that within me lies the same power to sing strength and hope into the lives of those with whom I share my music. And it becomes less and less important whether or not I am afraid. Let's join now for a time of silence, followed by music. Hymns so often find a place in our head and heart and stick there. Maybe a song from years ago, or perhaps something you just heard for the first time has taken a place in your mental music library. It somehow returns at the right moment to comfort, inspire, or cheer. There are so many ways our UU music finds a place in our lives. Today, members are sharing the ways that UU hymns have touched them. Enjoy.
Hi there, I'm Peggy. For my song, I chose Circle Round for Freedom. It's a pretty new hymn, and I don't know if it's one we've ever sang at the UUCP. I just learned it at a General Assembly worship service a few weeks ago, and I really liked it. And I really liked it because it has hand gestures, so I thought I'd share them with you. So the song goes, circle round for freedom, circle round for peace. For those of us imprisoned, circle for release. Circle for the planet, circle for each soul. For the children of our children, keep the circle whole. So there's a lot of things I like about that song. One thing I like about it is I love the movement part. The people who led the worship that I attended called it a body prayer. And that really resonated with me because when I sing at church, I want to move. And so I like the ability to do that. I also like that it's about community. It's about our circle and all of our circles. And to me, that's why I love singing at church so much. I love the feeling of being with others, feeling similar feelings. I also love that it's outwardly focused. It's focused on the things that we need to do in the world, because I think that that's what our coming together is for. And then the last thing I like about it is I really like the part about the children's children. I think that as I get older, I'm turning 60 in a couple of weeks, the idea of the future beyond me is one that is really important to me. So for all of those reasons, I really, really like this song. So I'm going to try to do it for you, singing it. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace. For those of us imprisoned, circle for release. Circle for the planet, circle for each soul. For the children of our children, keep the circle whole.
Hello, I'm Nancy Nelson, and the hymn that I want to talk about as meaningful to me is We Are a Gentle, Angry People. It's in our hymnal, The Living Tradition, which was published in 1993. But it has a history that's not necessarily Unitarian, although as Unitarians, I think we recognized and embraced it. Hearing something that resonated with what we see in ourselves and want to communicate to the world. It was actually written in 1978 by Holly Near, and she wrote it when she was on her way to a vigil for Harvey Milk. And since then, it's been embraced as an anthem for gay and straight and people, feminist, diversity, the effort to include as many people as possible. And I think that's one of the reasons why it was put in the Living Tradition when it was published. So like any really good protest songs, it also has the advantage of being fairly easy to sing. The melody is very simple and lines get repeated and repeated, which also lends itself to that. So I think it's a wonderful hymn, and I'm so glad it's a part of our tradition. And because it's easy to sing, it's easier for me to say, I will sing it for you. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
So when Sam asked if there were any of us choir members that had a piece of choral music that a hymn that we wanted to bring up that was special to us, I thought of initially the classics that we sing as Unitarian Universalists, Simple Gifts, Amazing Grace, Morning Has Broken. But then I thought of this choral piece that we sang last summer that Paul Thompson had picked out. And it has special significance for me, not only because our choir sang it, and the choir is a very special part of my participation in the church. I love singing with other people. It's just such a joy. But the reason why this is also special to me is that it was a saying that was on a plaque in Chris's, my ex's wife, family's large home, her parents' home, John and Dorothea's, who often had very large get-togethers of the family, the kids, aunts and uncles, the grandkids, and their house was large. People came over and they had a sleepover for several days around the 4th of July and had a family reunion. There's a pool, a large deck, a patio, and a fair amount of imbibing and partying. And it was just wonderful. It was truly a great time of just feeling of love, feel the love. No unkind words. I never heard any unkind words or conflicts with the family, and they're very Irish, very conscious of being Irish, and this was probably in reaction to the kind of feedback they got, maybe ridicule, because of their last name, which was Looney. And so, corny as it is, they called these get-togethers the Looney Reuni. So anyway, this blessing, this Irish blessing, was on a plaque on the wall of their family room, and it just reminds me of the great times we had together. Unfortunately, the Loonies passed away a couple of years ago. Chris decided that she wanted to live the rest of her life as a single woman, and so it's been a time of loss and change for me, but I've learned a lot, and I've always felt the support of their family and the love that's expressed in this blessing. So with that, I think we're going to hear the choir's recording of it, the recording of the choir's singing of the Irish blessing. So take care and have a great summer. Bye.
May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rain fall soft upon your fields, and until we meet again, and until we meet again, may the God that loves us all hold you in the palm of his hand.
Hi, I'm Joseph Earhart Hudson, and I'd like to share We'll Build a Land. I love this hymn not only because of its inspiring words, but because the words force me to stop and think about what I'm saying. It's inspired by the books of Isaiah and Amos, envisioning a land of peace and justice. And the words also envision a possibility that is within our power to seek. Inspiring words, but there's a lot to think about there. We'll build a land inspired by God, anointed by God. Who are we to claim God's mantle as we go forward? It's smacks of manifest destiny. I don't know how some people might hear those lyrics. Newer problems that may come from some of the lyrics, where sisters and brothers, there are more and more people, especially our youth, who are saying, time out, drop me out of this gender binary. Please don't call me one or the other. I'm a sibling. I'm a person before I am male or female. And yet, the words of inspiration from Amos, if you look in deeper, it's saying we're suffering because we mistreat the poor. We are suffering, everybody, the poor and the privileged both, because of the mistreatment of the orphan and the widow. Those are words to think about. They're words to think about as we sing them and imagine ourselves moving forward into a better future. The arc of justice bends slowly. We've got to make sure we're pulling the right direction.
Hi everybody, my name's Sam Welsh. I'm the music director here, and today I wanted to talk about Blue Boat Home. Now I was very careful picking this one because I figured everybody was going to want to talk about this piece because it is my favorite UU hymn by far. So I know it's a serious and sometimes solemn and very personal hymn to a lot of people, but I wanted to reflect today on my own journey with this piece, which is probably a little silly, but it still continues to be an important piece for me and for my work with all of you. So 16 years ago, I started my first graduate degree at Ithaca College in upstate New York, and I would describe myself as a hardcore piano performance major. So I was interested in focusing on the heavy romantic literature and nothing else. So I ended up sort of by default, I had a mentor there named Mark Rideout. He was a bodybuilding musicologist, so he basically was my personal trainer. So we would do big discussions about Bach and early keyboard music. while doing bench presses. So it was a really interesting way to get to know both Mark and about musicology. So he insisted that I apply for a music director job in a town called Auburn, New York, which is about an hour north of Ithaca. Now, he was insisting that I apply despite the fact that I had never directed a choir and I had never played the organ. So Mark insisted that he would teach me whatever I needed to know, and then we started organ lessons right away. So at this interview, the rector, Doug Taylor Weiss, he asked me about my organ experience, and I was completely honest with him, and I said, well, I had one organ lesson, and it was yesterday. And so despite my best attempts to sabotage that interview, I was actually awarded the job. So like I said, Ithaca's about an hour away through the Finger Lakes region in central New York. And believe me when I tell you that it was gorgeous. So it was a great drive every Sunday morning, and even in the winter, it was very, very beautiful. So it gave me a lot of time to reflect on the music as I drove back and forth. And so I would go at least twice a week. But I also had to go up there to practice because as I found out, organ is difficult to practice when you're not on the actual organ that you're going to be playing. So Mark and his wife Jean, who was the organ professor at Ithaca College, designed a pretty aggressive kind of self-directed study program for me that focused on kind of liturgical planning, organ playing, and choir directing. And I was super lucky to be surrounded by great people who wanted to help me succeed. So I had an amazing organ teacher. Mark, the musicologist, helped me with the planning every week. And then I had a directed study also with the choral and vocal techniques person there. So it was ended up being a great experience. So I was able to draw on all the top people at the college, as well as participate in stuff at Cornell University, which is right there in the same town. So as a new organist, I could not believe how much more difficult it was to add your feet. I had a really hard time finding ways to practice because each organ is unique and has a totally different personality, will sound completely different. There are different buttons you have to press. And so to make matters worse, one of the parishioners at the church was a retired organ professor from the college, and he had even studied with Nadia Boulanger, who's one of the great music teachers of the 20th century. So he was from Alabama, and he would come up to me after every service and just say, Sam, I just have to tell you, the organ playing was so bad that I just had to stop singing. So I found out later that that was like a rote speech that he gave to every organist at the church, including my own teacher, Jean Radice. So somehow, despite his constant criticism, I kept showing up and I kept trying. So I quickly developed a deep appreciation for the excellent organists and outstanding hymn playing, especially in the Episcopal musical tradition. So the British composer Ralph Vaughan Williams composed most of the hymn arrangements in the Episcopal hymnal. And so some of the parts were very, very difficult. And so I had to take my victories where I could. And one of the very first ones was with the hymn tune. So it's a Welsh word spelled high fry dol, which I believe is pronounced hyfrydol in the Welsh. So it means pleasant or agreeable. And for me, this was the first hymn where I started to develop confidence in my feet. As you can see here in the music, the low notes don't move around too much, and that's usually what you would play with your feet when you're playing the organ. So when I started to perform this piece, and it was part of my very, very first service, I remember that, I would only play C or F, which are the two most important notes in the key of F, and so I would just sort of keep my feet positioned right on those pedals. And then as I got better and more confident, I would add more notes, and eventually I could play the whole thing. So here's a quick snippet from YouTube that shows you some of the action in the feet. Now, 11 years later, I moved to Colorado from Louisiana, where I had been the director of a Presbyterian church music program. Again, very small congregation, but this one I didn't play the organ, and I was just a choir director and the pianist. So I moved from Louisiana. I transferred out of LSU, where I had started my doctorate in piano performance, and I transferred to the University of Colorado at Boulder. It was a much better fit. And soon the UU Church in Lafayette, Colorado became my new home. And this was my first experience with Unitarian Universalism, and to say that it felt like coming home for me would be a huge understatement. I was welcomed by this very warm, very friendly, very erudite, learned community. And this was my first experience working as a music director where I felt like I belonged there, and it wasn't just a situation where I was working for a particular employer. So, of course, I had to play Blue Boat Home at my interview, and it's definitely a much more virtuoso piano setting than any of the other hymn arrangements of that tune that I had encountered. So there's so much cool stuff going on. I just wanted to take a second and talk about some of it. So first of all, the right hand is awesome. And it gives you that sense of really kind of soaring over the open water. One of the cool things I think about how this piece is set up is that he is Peter Meyer, the arranger of this piece from 2002. He uses a technique called hymnal, where you have groups of 3. And then you have groups of 2. So that's a very cool, what they call a polyrhythm. Now, if you remember Reverend Dana Warsnop's service from last week, she talked about polyrhythms that use 3 against 4, which is indicative of the African tradition and different music. 2 against 3 is a bit more common in Western music. And it's a device that was used by Beethoven and Brahms, and you even hear it in rock music. So Radiohead uses it a lot. And then some bands like Earth, Wind, and Fire, even Britney Spears uses some hymnal. But it's very cool how he does it in this, and he also adds a really nice bit of downbeat syncopation, which gives you that sense of both soaring over the water and the waves that are coming along. So it gives it that kind of off-kilter flow that I think is really, really appealing for this piece. So it's challenging to play, and it's really fun as a pianist. Now, I have something called synesthesia. Now, I have a very mild form of it. It's where your senses kind of get mixed up. So I tend to hear music in color. So I hear keys and musical shapes, sometimes chords as different colors. So I've talked to people who have very strong synesthesia, and their literal vision will change tint if they hear things in a particular key. Well, this piece is in E major, and I don't know of a single person who would describe E major as being blue. At one of my first services in Colorado, I started this piece in the wrong key. So I hear E flat as being closer to blue than E major. So I, without even realizing it, started it a half step lower than it's written. So it sounds like this. Which to me feels more blue. Now, unfortunately, I'm not actually very good at transposing at sight. I can usually do it with some practice and a little lead time. So I had a decision to make. I knew that the page turn was coming. I knew there was a chord there that I wasn't entirely positive what it was. Turns out it's a G sharp minor chord, which would have been easy enough to transpose, but I just couldn't think ahead while I was playing it. So what happened was I finished the page in the correct transposed version. And then instead of going, I went immediately from the new key back into the old key. And then I went, which is maybe a little more colorful than I had intended, and I was very embarrassed, but fortunately just a couple people noticed, and it made for a good joke later on. But it's an easy piece to fall in love with, both as a pianist and as a perpetual nomad. I've lived in so many places. And for me, it really represents finding a home with the UU and with the rich musical tradition that we all share. So I hope you enjoy this performance from our choir. Paul Thompson put this together, and I am playing piano on it. And I promise I will stay in the correct key for the entire duration of the piece. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful music. Our closing words are a poem by Lynn Unger, In the Ruins. A man sits on the rubble, not just in the rubble, but on the pile of what remains. No people in the bombed out houses, no dogs, no birds, just ragged hunks of concrete and loss. And on his perch, he is playing an instrument constructed of what is left, an olive oil can, a broom handle, a bowed stick, and strings. It sounds exactly as it is supposed to sound. The instrument cries, but the man sings. Because sometimes loss is deeper than tears, because sometimes grief is resistance, because somewhere down the very long road, music is stronger than bombs.
Now let us extinguish our chalices together with these closing words. We extinguish this chalice that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light our paths as we leave this place. May it guide our way until we are together again. Thank you all so much for coming and listening today. I think sometimes it's very hard to find what unites us as Unitarian Universalists. We have so many beliefs and so many different values and so many different ideas. But I think part of our common fabric is the songs we share together and our shared love of music. So I hope you really enjoyed today's service very much.